Hey, everybody. Welcome to thepowervoices.com, and I'm AnnaMarie at the Comedy Hour Live. I'm anticipating my guests. Believe it or not, they're stuck in traffic on the 405 and what have you. So I have Royal Watkins coming in, and I also have Rocky the comic who will be here. He's been hanging out with me, and he just had a birthday, having a good time. He's actually on the phone. So what does he have to say? Hey, Rocky, I'm on the phone. I'm on the air, so what do you got?
Okay, yeah, he should be in the parking lot. So I was gonna say, yeah, look for him.
Okay, well, tell him 135. Tell him just come in the door.
No, just go peek out there.
Oh, yeah, because I'm on the air.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right. Gotta love technology. So, in saying that, I just want to say welcome to the show as I get my bearings over here. I just came from a awesome night of comedy, and it's at the open stage that they had over in Sherwin Oaks. Am I saying Sherman Oaks? Is that the bell? I'm hearing things. Okay, so Sherman Oaks. Anyways, yeah, we had a lot of things. I got to talk to a lot of the comedians and finding out a few things that I'd like to discuss with my guests. They were telling me the drama of actually some of these comedians that pay for their shows, their flights rather, to go to a show, and they don't get paid. Promoters take off with their money. It's like if anyone's been out in LA, it's not cheap between parking and everything else that you're going to be doing. So I was really amazed at some of the stories of what these people do. And, that's the thing that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, that, support your comedians. Because I don't know where you'd be without comedy. Because I know in my house it wouldn't fly. I got a household full of comedians. If anybody knows my family, they will verify this at any time. But this is something that, the more I get out there, the more that I see that it really is something to watch what these people invest in. So, how you doing? My first guest is here, Royal Watkins. Am I saying that right? Royal Watkins. How you doing, yo?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm good. AnnaMarie.
AnnaMarie, my
Nice to
pleasure.
meet you. Rocky's on his way. Yeah, it's a hot mic. Thank God you're here. I was just talking to myself like I always do,
Oh,
but it
no,
was a
that's
little more
not.
obvious because it's just me.
Well, there's horrible traffic out there, so I was
Yeah,
doing
well,
my
get
best.
out. In LA, he says that get out. That's
my
the one thing
goodness.
about LA, huh?
Just can always look forward to horrible traffic, no matter what time, night or day.
Right. I did a spiel on that. Like, you're always trying to beat the guy who's going to get out there and fuck it up for you anyways.
Yeah. All right, so we can cuss. We got that established.
Yeah, you got that. Just until, unless I'm picked up by some phenomenal commercial, anything flies.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
we call it Netflix friendly. But I was just saying, now, obviously, this is the first time I've met you.
Okay, good.
Comedian of...
Writer, actor, producer, comedian, side chick advocate, grandmother's husband, yeah.
Yeah, so you're
Prior
doing your
service
thing.
Marine, a lot. There's a lot,
And you travel a lot of the circuit as well?
I don't travel a lot. I move around a lot, but it's not like I'm a comic that's out there doing, 400 gigs a month or anything like that. I produce a show in New York once a month, so yeah, just flew in last night. When did I get back? What's the day? Tuesday?
Yeah, man. Is that
Yeah,
how
I
it
got
gets,
back.
though, right?
Yeah, it's it's a little
Get
but I
that
got back
jet
last
snag?
night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it so much that you would think that by now.
Well, what's the
it's-
show that you produce in New York?
So I produced a show called The Mixtape Comedy Show at Gotham Comedy Club in
I've heard of that.
Manhattan. Yes, that's my show. So
That's awesome, dude.
next month we'll be doing our 100th anniversary of that show. I guess not
You kidding
anniversary
me?
year. Not. I mean 100th show. I should say the 100th. It's a monthly show.
Right.
So
But
we're
that's a
doing
lot.
the 100th show. Yes. So it's super exciting to be able to continue doing that.
Now, for comedians that are listening, I do have, like, a lot of comedians who say, I like a show because I learned stuff.
Mhm.
Would you have an open format, open roll call? How do you get comedians that are...
I have a young lady named Kristen J, who I met some years ago when I was a young comic doing Def Comedy Jam. She was the assistant to the producer Bob Sumner on that show. And when I started producing this show, her and I teamed back up, and now she produces and talent produces the show. So I literally fly in, jump on stage. She hands me a list before I get on stage, but she takes care of everything.
Wow.
So if they're interested, the Mixtape Comedy Show on Facebook, we have a page. But Kristen J is the person you want to look for, and then you can connect with her and she'll figure it out for you.
Yeah, because there's a lot of avenues that a lot of people like. I have a friend of mine out of Boston. I was going to try and get him to Skype in tonight and just between stuff, I joke with him, say, "What are you doing at 1 a.m.? Because you're a comedian, you're
Yeah.
up. Don't
Yeah,
lie to
sure.
me."
Yeah.
Comedians don't sleep. Guys are all batty bat.
No.
It's like and it's really hard. I mean, as far as like situating in LA, I really like to catch up on what everybody's doing.
Mhm.
I went to it's called Open Stage, and they had it in Sherman Oaks.
In Sherman Oaks?
Yeah, Sherman.
Uh-huh.
I always call it Sherman. It's Sherman Oaks. And
I thought it was a different place.
yeah, no, I'm bad like that. And
You're from Boston, though, right?
Yeah, so that's why I can't
The
pronounce
accent is
shit.
still there.
Yeah.
Very
Well, yeah,
strong.
you would think that. Everybody goes, "Oh, so you just moved out here?" I said, "Yeah, a year and a half ago." But I lived in Florida for 11 years, and they said, "Well, why do you still have your accent?" I'm like, "Because nobody's from Florida,
Right.
so it's not like you can actually pick up the accent." And a lot of people will say New York, and I'm like, "No, New York is kind of a little more drawn out." Yeah,
I don't know, but Boston's very distinguished.
very distinct. And if you don't understand that language, but the comedians out there are all telling me, get your feet wet in LA, and you can actually make a living here.
I
Because
guess you can. You can make a living anywhere now with the internet.
Yeah,
With the internet and
that's
a real
thing
hustle.
that I'm hearing. Shank said that what he's doing. I asked him if he teaches a seminar. He said he was teaching a class Thursday night on how to handle your social media, because he's a master at it.
Is he? Shang is a master at handling your social media?
He is. I don't know.
He's
if
a
that's
road
so.
warrior.
He's a
I don't
road
know.
warrior.
Maybe I need to be paying more attention to Shang, and that's
Dude,
not a dig at him.
No. He actually, and this is what he was talking about. He actually did. Now, what he said was, say you do something for the Comedy Network. Is that what I want to?
For the circuit?
Okay. Let's say that you do a special, and they agree. You have the contract signed for X amount of dollars. Well, they own your content for that X amount of dollars. He's taken the way he's done ownership of his content, what he produces. He does he does everything, and he puts out, like he just did his albums, and he went to his own distribution. He said he actually just Googled it. And he was talking about the difference in taking out that middleman and does all his promotion on all
anybody
of his
can
social
do
media.
that. You know what I mean? It's like we get so caught up in letting people come to us and offer a fraction of what our value is for the sake of convenience. But the reality is that every young comic should be their own first distributor to start, so that they can learn how the business of distribution work, because it is single-handedly probably the X factor and most important thing you'll ever come to understand, because again, it drives everything. If you don't have distribution, you can't make a living.
You find that, like, I'm really amazed that there's such there's so many comedians, as I said, out in LA. And like a lot of them, the idea of just getting up and going open mic to open mic, becoming known throughout the clubs, but there's a whole backdrop behind the ones that are really working their social media, that are working their contacts,
Absolutely,
that are out there hustling. It's more than we had a family-owned restaurant business in Boston, and the amount of work that goes into maintaining any business. And when you're out, you're working. When you're in the clubs, you're working. You should have that mindset. This is this is my profession. How to perceive this is not party time. And I see a lot of with the different comedians that I've seen, and there's there's different cliques. That I notice that there's certain groups that from certain comedy, like the Comedy Store versus improv versus like there's all different kinds of people that kind of you become a family.
Yeah, sure.
So for the new kids that are just breaking into town, which when you're not from LA or you don't understand what goes on here, people have this assumption that all they need to do is be at the right place at the right time, and that it's just something that's going to just come to them. And a lot of them are like discouraged with it's a lot of work. When you talk to comedians that have years, and like Shank's 20, 28, also had Rich Scheidner, who just wrote his book, Kicking Up the Ashes. When I interviewed him, he was talking about in the 80s how if you emceed, you got paid $2,500 versus like now you're like if you get $250.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that.
It was
that
the
MC that was making the money.
Yeah, because the clubs, he said, became so huge to fill these clubs. For what there's so many of them too. I mean, It just burst and just went, and then you have all the shows that are coming on. He said the difference is in you can do a show. And I've seen that where they do bringer shows, and some of the top name comedians that have done actually HBO, Showtime, what have you, they'll tell me they make maybe $25. It's not the way it used to be, depending on what also what I brought up earlier is, I don't know if you can touch base on this, but going to where they've flown with their own money to a club that they've been booked at, and then they don't get paid. They said this is also reality for some people. And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't. I can't really speak to that. I've been fortunate enough that I've never had to deal with flying to a club, and not that I haven't done gigs where
Hey,
where a
Rocky.
promoter hasn't stiffed me out of a couple of bucks, but it gets to be a bit extreme. I guess I've been fortunate in that way that that's not been my experience.
as to for people to understand the importance of supporting comedians in the local genre, shall I say? Like a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, this was the other thing. I can see that on YouTube, or I can go here and I can watch it for free because it's not cheap going to clubs."
No, not at all.
So,
But it's not cheap going to anything. It's not cheap going to dinner. It's not cheap going to concerts. The inflation is a very real thing. The cost of things go up, but it's relative.
yeah, as far as your planning when you're, first coming out here and planning your life, as far as get a full-time job, because or
But
for
what are we talking about? Are we talking about in terms of talent and what they should be focused on?
Right.
Help me.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just, again, yeah, if you're a comic and you're starting out and you have to make decisions about what's important to, if you're really interested in being a part of this business, you have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to come to some very clear understandings about what you want to put your attention on. And if your hustle is this business, then you need to first figure out where you're going to lay your head at night. That's important. You don't want to be laying on the ground outside.
Or sleeping in your car. I've heard
Well,
that
I mean,
story.
I know a comic right now that sleeps in his car. I'm actually hoping to get a project off the ground based on his experience. But, I really have a high regard for him because he's making a sacrifice based on something he believes in that he's very passionate about. Now, you have a whole lot of people who go, you know what? That's below my standard. I'm not going to sleep in or live out of a van to chase this thing that I'm passionate about.
What's his name? I think I've seen him before.
It's Ron Taylor.
Oh, phenomenally talented
Yeah.
young man.
He's hilarious.
He's hilarious. He's brilliant.
and,
yeah,
and a really good guy. You
yeah,
know
he
what I mean?
really is genuine.
But he'll more than likely go very far in this business based on his willingness to make that sacrifice.
And can we just say, like, it's probably a little different for the people who are watching and listening than the regular person, like, sleeping in a car. Like, it's a van that he has converted into a domicile, like it's the living space.
Well, I mean, but it is still a van. It's not even. I wouldn't call that RV living. I wouldn't call what he's living in RV
I
living.
haven't been inside of it.
Have you seen it?
Seen his cooking
Yeah.
show. Like,
Yeah, it's a shitty van.
He does a cooking show out of the van.
He eats out of
puts
the
up
van,
little
so he
clips
makes
about-
meals
Oh,
out of
that's
the
awesome.
van.
Of his little, is it like a little gas grill? It looks like not a grill, like
But what you
It's
just
one
said,
step above homelessness. Let's not kid ourselves.
right?
Sure.
But
It's one step above homelessness.
that's it, because I did get to go by his van and take a look in that, and I said, man, that's incredible dedication, as far as to your craft, as far as to what your goal and what your dream is that you're willing to sacrifice the comforts of having a space in a
Sure.
home. And he just said, in what you said, he does believe you couldn't do that without that belief, and he backs it up with the talent that he has. I mean, there's no doubt when you see somebody step on that stage that has just something more than what you've seen as far as performance goes. And the night that he performed, that I saw him, and it was a small genre, the amount of energy he brought and what he played off of in that room was just outright brilliance. There was no time for you to prepare. They, at the last second, took away no cursing, and they hadn't told anybody until they had got to the genre that there was going to be a no cursing thing. And he went on a whole thing on that.
Well,
and
why
it
would
was-
they? What kind of show or format is this where there's a guessing game to?
What we had assumed on that from watching, and I just went as a supporter watching
Sure.
the comics, was that then it was a place of some kind of holy worship or some genre that you couldn't wear your shoes. We were told to take our shoes off, and you also couldn't swear. So I have no idea. I know the person that promoted said they didn't have any idea until they got there that this was going to be dropped on them.
Yeah.
And then to turn around
If
and
they-
tell 10 comics you can't swear, and they were all like, "What?"
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Now?
look, my show in New York is a clean show, so it
Right.
doesn't
But they
bother
know
me.
that
But I
before
just
they
think
come
that
into it.
sure, exactly.
be able to
Everybody
work
knows
both
that my
ways.
show's a clean show, but still, just I think that if you invite talent to do something, they should have the information far enough in advance that they can come and have fun. At the end of the day, that's you can't swear on the Tonight Show, you can't swear on
Right.
these late night shows. But again,
That's
people
changing
should
now.
be. I know that is changing.
Is that
Somewhat.
why do you think that is? You think because of Netflix and the competition with HBO that
Well, people's
Standards
sensitivity
have
to
changed.
language, yeah, their standards and sensitivity or lack of sensitivity to language has changed.
And it's rough too because like not rough, but I can recall moments like I'm not really aware of it. So like moments when like my mom is in the car and then I'm like, oh hell, like AM, like just turn the music off because FM is just crazy now. Even just FM radio.
oh
Like there were so many things
Yeah.
you used to not be able to say on the radio.
true.
Even this show, you cuss a storm up.
Yeah, I do. I actually, being from Boston, I was laughing because I watched The Patriot last night with Mark Wahlberg, and of course, people in the thing, every other word is like, "You fucking this," and "What the fuck is wrong with you? Is he fucking looking at me?" I don't know what his fucking problem is. And the person watching it with me goes, "They really do use the word fuck a lot. You weren't kidding. You weren't using that as an excuse." They
Why
go,
is that?
You grow up with that. I don't
Boston.
know. It's just a cultural thing in Boston. The word, fucking A was just is like culturally part of that language that you don't flinch when you hear the word.
Yeah, sure.
So in trying, somebody says, well, you really should. You're a very attractive woman. You should try and use another word to show your intelligence. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You want me to take that word out? And
I know a
it's
young
just-
lady from Boston who's just saying things like, "What? Why?"
Why is that? Well, if you're not from there, and you'd really have to see, when they do the movies like Ben Affleck and Mark Wahlberg and what's his name, Matt Damon. A lot of the references to Boston and a lot of the humor, that is
That's
just
what it's born out of.
yeah. I don't know if it's just we don't feel that way, as far as being raised by a lot of the stuff that we talk about in comedy. It's like the subjects. It makes for good content as far as if I was to get up on stage and talk about my mother and what I grew up with. And people just find it hysterical. And they're like, she actually said that? I said, yeah. I mean, we ran a bar. And we had a joke one night, the worst joke you could ever tell. So I won the $50. And then the guy goes, man, that was disgusting. Where would you hear such a joke? And I went, my mother. I mean, it was just, it's not something that everybody cringes about as far as that goes. Yeah.
But one thing I would like to say too, just about language and what Royale was saying earlier, is just like, if you want to be, I feel like it's my opinion, but if you want to be a professional comedian, learn how to work both ways.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Like really, because I think that's an excellent trait of a comedian, is when they can see an audience and say, okay, I can find a way to reach these people. Even if it's a group of people you can't relate to per se or what have you, through your experiences, but yet, find those connections, find those.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Because there is the school of thought that you do what you do, you polish what you do well, and that's what you sell, right? If you're a pie company and your specialty is blueberry pies, he's like, yo.
Yeah, could you imagine Red Fox being
It's
clean?
like, this is
What
what
he's
I make.
saying, yeah.
I'm a blueberry fucking pie company. And if you want me, guess what? You better damn sure like
But most
blueberry
people aren't
pies.
going to say I'm a blueberry pie. We're going to say I'm a baker.
Sure.
So like you were saying, there are certain outlets, whether it was the Tonight Show, whether it was whatever, when that call comes, are you going to be able to work clean to get that spot?
There's
That's
been
what I'm
many comedians that
referring
have
to.
not gotten the opportunity.
Blown that moment, yeah.
Have blown the opportunity because they just couldn't, I've had comics that have said, no, I don't want to do your show in New York. For as popular as my show is in New York City, I mean, Jerry
Thank you
Seinfeld
he
was
just
on my
flew in.
show Sunday.
Yeah, he
You know
said
what I
that.
mean?
So thank you
You
for
know,
that.
it's like, he dropped in and did 35, 40 minutes on my show.
Wow.
And that was his second time there. But there's been other comics that say, well, I don't want to work clean. I don't want to do your show because I don't want to work clean. And it's not like my show is crystal. You could say ass, damn, hell, bitch, but you just can't.
Use
Strong
that.
sexual
gratuitous
content
with
and
it, yeah.
motherfucker. This is like that's
So,
not the
right.
standard that I want on that stage.
Yeah, but that being said, you have, and in going to the comedy shows that I've seen in LA, the amount of talent that is out there, you have every kind of talent. So I would imagine you have an endless supply.
No, but I've had, again, Amy Schumer did my show. She did my show clean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I will say with exception though, that like Chris Rock, I'm not gonna, Chris. I'm gonna let Chris be Chris.
He's blueberry pie. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, he was not blueberry pie. So, but again, I'm not
Just
gonna turn
real
away the
specific.
opportunity
Yeah.
to have Chris on my show. So,
Now, how long have you been in
doing stand up?
Yeah.
I've been doing stand up for 25 years.
Oh wow, that's just I so respect that because the staying power is just incredible.
And he's found wonderful niches for himself. Like he's saying, running a show, even to now directing comedy shows. Like he's done movies for people.
So you have to, but that's you have to, if you want to sustain yourself long term in this business, you have to find ways to, I call them tools in the toolbox. It's like, okay, if one tool isn't working, so I did Def Jam early on and got a lot of heat being on Def Comedy Jam and doing the tour. But there came a time where, okay, that heat died down and I wasn't as popular doing stand-up. So it was like, all right. And I was a young man with a family. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now when this one piston isn't firing? It's like, all right, let me shift, start writing for television. It's like, okay, these guys in the television space, a lot of senior comics go on to become comedy showrunners. So that they produce half-hour TV. So if you know how to maneuver the space, you can get yourself a job as a writer. So you start out punching up TV. You know what I mean? Just saying, oh, I can help make this half-hour show funnier. So you come in and lend your service just punching up, and then you graduate from that and get a job writing for television. So that was, again, one of my other hustles. Like, all right, let me start writing for TV. And then once I started writing for television, I said, okay, the other thing that I can do is I can produce comedy specials. So again, that puts you back in relationship with the people that you know. It's like you tell the networks, well, all of these comedians are guys that I started out with that I have relationships with. So if you want a special, I'm probably one of the better people to help broker these deals and help put the show together because they trust me, right? And I know how to put the show together. So again, just being able to sell myself in that way allowed me to do, I think I've done, produced 16 comedy specials up to date and directed 4 specials and produce, it's been more content than that, but that's just the notable stuff that,
And you still enjoy the heart of what, like actually sitting and enjoying the comedy.
I absolutely love
the passion of that.
I have an incredible passion even to this day for putting comedy together because comedy services something that like it's a medicine for the world. Like when people are going through things, they turn to music, they turn to liquor and drugs, and they turn to comedy. And so that I can be one of those choices that is less destructive, like to me has meaning. When it's done well, it heals people.
Yeah, my saying that if laughter is the best medicine, let me be your pharmacy. And I say that back in the day in high school, people, there's something about being funny. There's something about making people laugh that
there's no question. It lifts
breaks
their
boundaries.
Spirits. It lifts their spirits. It
Yeah.
breaks boundaries, and again, it has meaning that really reaches beyond so many things that we just take
Right.
for granted.
I mean, one of the things about the sayings, oh man, I laughed so hard. I mean, you were so funny, I had snot flying. And comedians like, that's the best compliment. Yeah, when you're laughing so hard, you get snot flying out of your
Yeah.
nose. You can't get your breath. And that's like a joy that, I mean, I think the world needs is to be able to take the things that everybody's going through, right, with the with the way when Sheng was on the show and we went into the Trump mode, and he's just out there as far as like he holds nothing back. And in the show that I saw him do on Saturday, and there was the lineup of comedians. You had Damon Wayans Jr. he actually asked me not to record. Didn't know who I was.
Sure.
And usually what I do is I record the content and then I let them know, hey, I got you recorded. Let me know where I can send it to you for your. I would never post anything because what he said was, hey, this could not work and it's going to be hanging up there forever. Please don't tape it. I don't want it posted on YouTube, which I totally respect. And I think before every show that an MC should talk to their comedians as to who wants their
Were
content.
you hosting the show?
No, I wasn't.
So you came in just as a.
Yeah, just as an observer, and I do the 60 seconds. If they want to upload it to Instagram or something, they have that content for themselves. I would never post it because of what I've heard them say in these cheers as to how they feel about their content being up on social media if they're not posting it.
Well, most clubs won't allow it.
Well,
But the other thing too is, this is one of the only professions where it's like sometimes you have to try it out first.
Right.
And
And
so
that's what he said.
that's back to this baker analogy. You got to get in that kitchen and throw a few ingredients in there and see if you like it first, and or let some people test it. Well, she's a cooker. She's a cook over here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't had any yet, but
Yeah,
it is
keep
my
promising
birthday,
that.
AnnaMarie.
It is. I got to get to
Is it
cooking
today?
that food. Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Happy
yeah.
belated, brother.
Appreciate it.
Today's my daughter's
You and
birthday.
Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah. And why did I just realize that?
You and Cedric.
And I've been at a birthday party with him, but it was for it was someone's kid. But just realized that.
Yeah,
Actually, my wife pointed it out to me because she knows them and her and
Yeah, Nancy
him and
Bellany had
Lorna.
the picture of her on and her and him about the birthdays, and I said, "Oh, Rocky shares a birthday. That's pretty cool." You have to admire to the business sense. I want to say that is I think a lot of people in the I want to come out because me being out here from Boston, I have a lot of my friends' kids were like, man, so you do a comedy hour. I want to be a comedian. I want to come out there. How should I go about it? And I tell them, you should take a business course because you should know a little bit about business and a lot about, the structure of what it is to have what contracts are based out of.
Yeah, I mean, look, if anybody's seriously interested in stand-up, they should focus on funny. Just be funny. I mean, I to your point, I understand the value of what you're saying, but really at the end of the day, it really is about finding a stage or a platform because now with social media, I don't even know if I can legitimately say find a stage because so many of these kids now aren't doing it on stage.
No, that Instagram.
They're just doing it right here in the phone.
Well, they're trying to take it to the stage,
funny
and it
content.
does not translate.
But that's a whole different thing. You know what I mean? That's a whole different thing. It's like, again, I guess I'm now crossing, again, for traditional stand-up comedians. You know what I mean?
Well, the stage has that energy that give and take energy that comics they're addicted to. I mean, I've had a lot of them say that there's just something about that give and take from the audience that I can't find anywhere else. That brings me to a higher level based on that energy.
Right.
Yeah,
well, it's definitely a relationship that if you're going to learn to do stand-up comedy well, you have to master.
Oh, yeah, they say get out there as much as you can.
Yeah. You have to write material, put it in front of people, hear what it is, figure out what works and what doesn't work, and fucking fail. You know what I mean? I don't know anybody who gets on stage and masters this the first time they do it and is just magically the most amazing, funniest person in the universe.
That's almost like the worst thing that could happen because it isn't really like that.
Well, Chappelle said that. Like, it took him a while before it didn't work. And then he was, or wait, maybe I'm mixing up the story. But he had so much success really early on, but he was happy that he still had that moment where it didn't, because then it,
I was gonna say he had a tremendous amount of success. I mean, I watched him as a young kid develop as a comic because we're from the same city, but you have to fail at some point. Like, I believe you learn more about stand-up comedy bombing.
Oh my gosh, it's such a. Whew.
You learn so much more. You learn so much about yourself when you're bombing. Those moments where your mouth is cotton mouth and there's nobody responding, and you have to figure out how to. You develop that sense of well-being on stage or comfort when you learn how to live in those moments where it's not working.
Which is, if you got to be thick-skinned for that.
Well, yeah, you gotta
do comedy,
you figure
period,
out
right?
You figure out really if this is something you really want to do or not. In those moments, you really, when you get your ass handed to you by an audience, you go home that night and you go, "Fuck, am I cut out for this? Is this something that I really should continue doing?"
Yeah, I've asked with the comedians, and hearing some of the stories of like being keyed and having like at the Apollo that experience and the things that they've dealt with as
You
far
said
as,
being keyed?
well, they
Where they shake you?
they shake their keys. Of course, being from
What
New
cities
England,
do? You know what I mean? That's like a
different things.
Chicago thing. I don't know a lot of cities that they do that. I think Chicago for sure, but it's just
to hear that though, I mean, I was like, well, how is it you how do you get back up and not fear that, like, and a lot of them said that, they become adamant about proving that wrong. I know I'm funny, I know, and that's what drives them. And I said, well, you'd have to, because it's not for
who
them.
the fuck thought that was the right thing to do to annoy a comedian on stage?
I
Shake
have
your
no idea.
keys?
That's-
But when an audience does it, like, you can imagine that sound must
of
be
course.
like
I'm sure it's got to be deafening.
unsettling.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course. Of
Is
course.
that
But
like
who's the
watching
first person that said, "I'm going to," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't get shit like that.
No, it's kind of, well, I mean, you could run a whole have a comedy club that has all these different things that people can
Yeah,
participate.
cowbells and fucking.
If you like them, shake the jingle bells. If not, get your
Yeah, I just
keys.
believe that gives too much power to the audience, though, and that's the problem
Right.
with silly shit like that. And you have clubs that will, like the
it,
Apollo
yeah.
is built on that whole concept of
We
if
talked
you
about
don't
that
like
last show.
somebody, boo them. It's like now you've just giving all of the power in the room over to people who paid money to come see somebody, hopefully do well.
But it's nice to see those artists that can endure such a moment like that and fight through it and find, this beautiful part of their career on the other side. Because I'm brought to mind it's brought to my mind Lauryn Hill, because she was booed out of the Apollo as a young kid, which that's usually something they don't do, is boo kids.
Right.
But she got booed as a kid.
And that's,
But imagine like what we would have lost out from an artist
right.
standpoint if she was
that
just
would've
like,
broke her.
maybe music isn't for me.
No, I couldn't imagine that. And that being said, it's like I started out in the industry as a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And having said that, being in control of a stage, I'm very comfortable on stage. I've done a few moments of stand-up. And I have a deep respect for people who do that for a living or a passion. It is your passion. There's no doubt you can't do it. But also the ingenious of a very quick mind. When you see them actually able to have what they do, and then also take the energy of what's going on in the room,
Of course.
and play off that. That is something that I don't think you can learn as much as it's just embedded in you, and almost like a survival mode. I would imagine as kids, for me, it was just like to be that quick was something that you had to be. How I grew up, I was brought up as a young girl that was bullied a lot by, for whatever reason. And I could find that if I was really quick with my wit, and, it would save my ass so many times that it became like an automatic coping mechanism.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The reality is that, yes, so instinctively as a talent, there will be some things that you're able to access. But the other component is that if you've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, and you're doing X amount of shows per year, some of these kind of scenarios are going to become things you've seen before, energies you've been in before. And so now you're just dialing up give me a 357 because you know it works in this situation. It's
I would imagine. You think like the greats, Robin Williams, being able to do such incredible work on that improv mind that no one knew.
But Robin, he was doing it so much. Again, I just can't believe that a lot of those things that, again, a lot of it is talent, but again, a lot of it also, I believe, is stuff he's heard before.
Scripted?
And so he just, not even scripted,
just years of improv, years of like.
You're in clubs and people say stuff to you. Like people tend to say generally the same things because people think the same things are funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great point. So it's a different place, just the same. So it's
Same
almost
si-
like a
listen,
formula.
Yeah, because it's one of the things I've relied on when I'm on stage. It's not that I sit down and I write something for every show. It's I feel like I've had a thought on most things, and if I'm on stage, if I'm doing improv, and you throw something at me, subject wise, I've had a thought about that subject, whatever it is, or trying to make it seem like it relates to it, you know? So it's not like it's a completely new thought. It's new to you, you haven't heard it,
Right.
but yeah, I've contemplated this at some point.
And do the rooms, as far as like the rooms that you've played, as far as the size of a room, the way a room's set up, being on the same level, are there different? Like I had to sing in front of people that we were on the same level versus being up on stage. It's a whole different kind of environment. Or going out. One guy said he likes to go out. Different things that comedians do in the different clubs. I guess what I want to say, as far as the environment for where you're going to be funny, you're saying that it doesn't matter, that even the situation being that I know small rooms, you can generalize. One guy said to me, small rooms, people don't tend to be as outwardly laughing. He said it's more of an intimate setting. People, where if you have a big room, there's a contagiousness that happens with laughter. That if you can, you can hear it actually roll through
Sure.
the room.
Yeah.
And that strategy, and I'm like, it's overwhelming as to how much actually goes into a show for a comedian when he's standing on that stage. Just telling jokes isn't it.
Not at all.
No. And that's what a lot of people think, that being a comedian is just being funny.
There are a lot of technical things that go into performing.
Right.
And learning how to read rooms, learning body language for even yourself as a performer, learning movement, because again, I just think that can become a big part of it, and knowing whether you should have movement or not. Some comedians that are physical, some comedians aren't physical at all. I watch some comedians perform, Chappelle doesn't move a lot.
Right.
D.L. Hewley doesn't move a lot. But you'll take somebody like Tony Roberts, you take somebody like Mark Curry, these
Chris
guys
Rock moves a lot too.
Chris paces though.
Right.
He doesn't act out move, he just paces. It's the lion in the cage thing where he needs to keep your attention, so he'll do this. But it's interesting that, again, these things only get figured out after years of performing and finding out for yourself. Because it's one of the things that I had to learn how to do. It's like how you get stuck and then you feel, and then you become a robot trying to figure out, it's like, what's comfortable for you? You got to do what's comfortable for you, and what your show kind of dictates you should be doing in terms of performing for people. Some people want to perform, some people don't. Some people just want to stand there and tell the story.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those differences in the way because paying attention to the motion and the movement and watching comedians perform in the different styles, right down to everything from the idea of dress, the idea of how the persona that they've created. I mean, some of the comedians that have you had Gallagher back in the day, and you knew it was nobody had they didn't. What he did was just so incredibly almost vaudeville, kind of like slapstick comedy, as far as what he did very creatively, the smashing of the watermelon food and all the craziness that he did. And
interesting that people found that so entertaining that they were willing to pay money to just go watch a guy smash things.
Right.
Well, and I mean, it built up. It became its own thing. I mean, bringing your little ponchos and having like...
I believe they were probably selling ponchos. You know what I mean? I think that again, was another revenue source for them. Just even the ponchos.
That's clever.
And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Correct me if I am. But I think that he became so big that his brother was going out and was doing shows as Gallagher too.
Oh, that's right.
If I'm not mistaken, his brother was going out as Gallagher too and doing shows. So I got to look that up just to confirm it. But I was like, this is just amazing.
Wow.
As to what people, well, I mean, let's think of when the Gong Show came out.
Mm-hmm.
and people love watching other people do stupid things.
Of course.
And that's where Jackass was another format
Absolutely.
of that, where things that could actually get you killed, and
Those
some
guys
people
got
did.
Yeah, that was a whole nother level, though.
Right, but
That was a whole nother level of
And
stupid.
came
Right.
out of like that whole skateboard genre. It started off sometimes as these little niches, but they catch on. Especially if you can like catch the young crowd.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's where the most followed on Instagram and all of that. Those little clips that everybody's doing,
Sure.
because everybody's attention span lately. If you look at what it's about 30 seconds. You got 30 to 60 seconds to really catch somebody's attention.
Yeah, I believe
as
that.
As they're flicking through. That where conversation has almost gone that way. Hurry up! What do you got to say? I got to go. I got to be somewhere. Get to the point. So in saying that, with
It's
the
not even that
society-
because it's like,
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yeah,
So it's just like,
exactly.
dang, goodness.
But it's like with the comedy shows that you have, like I said, where you're watching them on YouTube, on the stations that are putting out what's funny. Reality TV has taken on a whole new twist of what's funny, yet also your mind is like, what was it, Honey Boo Boo, which I've never seen that type of, like, it's not comedy, but it's almost like a satirical look at what people will actually find interesting, that these people become so popular. Like you said, internet sensations are another one as far as what people are following. It's like extremism.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I just know for the social media content creators, at least the ones that I've been paying attention to, they're creating content that's funny. I think the X factor is that people aren't walking around with a giant screen TV, so they're not watching television in the way that they used to. They're watching everything on their phone. So because it's on the phone, you can access it faster, which means you can access more of it, and it becomes habitual to watch somebody that's servicing you with something that's funny, because most people are going to work and doing something that they don't want to do, really. They're just there to make money enough to make a living. And so if there's a distraction that kind of lifts their spirit with something funny, they're going to pay attention to it.
Right, and even like XM Radio and Sirius, which has the comedy shows that are on that when people are driving, to have access to that. I see a lot of my friends will say, man, I'm having a shitty day. I just put on the comedy.
Of course.
And, you see the, like you said, that release of tension. When you laugh, you use all these muscles.
It changes your spirit.
Right, it really does. And to be an ambassador of that, when people say I'm a comedian, and you can actually watch people in the room, they gravitate towards that, and they want, please say something funny. Like comedians will tell me that when people ask them, what do you do for a living? And they say, I'm a comedian, and people instantly say to them,
Of course.
"Oh,
Make me
man,
laugh.
make
Tell
me
me
laugh."
something
It's
funny.
like,
They have an expectation that you're going to, and some people will do that. Some people kind of enjoy doing that. I don't, It's like,
no.
it's like when I'm at work,
Right.
and I don't have a need to prove anything to anybody. But I don't mind, instinctively, if I sense that I can add some value to a room and I'm not trying to work the room, then yeah, it's kind of my natural energy to want to be funny, to want to add that. But again, I think there's a fine line between that and coming in and having to be the guy that's always on, and that, that guy is like, fuck that. I don't, I never want to be that guy.
Yeah, Rich Schneider said that there was a conversation. I think he said Steve Martin is not someone who, when he's off stage, he doesn't
Need to be funny.
Right. And, not really that social either.
Right.
But when he was talking, there was a comedian, and he said to the comedian, oh, you're one of those guys who's always on. As if, that
Yeah, it's
that
a little
difference.
annoying to me.
Yeah, that's what he said. And
It's
I
a
said,
little annoying.
really? He said, oh, yeah. He says, if you're not on stage, you get off the stage with comedians, they're like, shut the fuck up. And basically,
But you can't, whatever somebody's thing is, you can't knock them for their thing. I just know that, again, it just becomes a bit too much for me.
well, yeah, that being surprised at what going to the comedy clubs and having the conversations outside of being on stage and going into the green room. When I first started going to the shows and seeing the comedians off stage or in the back of the green room, and I was really surprised at that there was this incredible difference between the persona on stage and when I would actually, that energy, some of them were very quiet and in.
Well, that's another component though, because I know this for myself. Is like when I'm trying to center myself and I have to go perform. Sometimes I'm trying to get myself centered. I'm thinking about, visualizing what I want to do when I get on stage. So I get how some performers get quiet and try to get into their headspace so that they can go and deliver a product. Because again, there's a lot at stake.
And especially too, it's like you want to get on stage. Like it looks weird, even if for a poet or someone who like they get on stage with paper. It's like no, get your stuff. Like get a good sense of whatever this performance is going to be, because we'll feel it more when.
Yeah, that now it's changed to like they were doing like I got these jokes I'm trying out. They get their phone on the stool.
But that's that whole let me practice it, let me feel myself say it and feel that response, because like he was saying earlier, that's going to tell you that worked, that didn't work, and you'll try it a few times with different crowds, but that's when you find okay, these are those good things. Now I can find like that thread so that it all can feel like a set. That's when you're trying to work your way. Most comics are trying to work their way up to that 5-minute set, that 10-minute, 15-minute set,
Right.
30-minute set, hour set. Because when you get into 30 an hour, now we're talking producing a comedy show that could live on forever.
Of course.
You also have a environment that you like writing. I'm saying as comedians, do you have an environment that you like writing in?
Wherever. I like sitting in my office and writing material, but wherever a joke comes to me, now what I try to do is just make sure I stop and write it wherever I am. You gotta get comfortable. To me, you gotta get comfortable writing the joke wherever you are, because again, I just know early on there's just so many things, many bits that I lost because I said, this is what happened to me night after night.
Remember.
I would come off stage and your brain is in a creative space. And then your brain starts coming up with material, and I would be laying in bed and say to myself, "Oh, I should get up and write this down. I should write this bit down." And then I go, fuck, I'll write it in the morning. Gone
Hell,
every
you
time.
will, yeah.
Gone every time.
Yeah.
And so then I got in the habit of keeping a notepad.
I was going to say, because I use Evernote. What do you use? Because I like that it'll I want it back up.
Well, that's, again, I'm talking about years ago before
Okay.
all of
An
this
actual
computer.
notepad.
Yeah. But I would be, there would be a young lady in the bed with me, and I'd get up and go, "Where you going?" I gotta go write this fucking bit down. You could it's too important.
I would have somebody
too
That was
important.
what's his name? Boogie B when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it. We had a subject we were talking about, and I said, "Man, that's funny shit." And he goes, "I'm writing it down right now."
Yeah, you can't lose it.
He says, "Because I just
You
hold
will,
on there because
yeah.
I'm going to forget it. There's a joke in there." And to be able to do that, Willie Barcena had talked about he'd go to Denny's. He had his own table at Denny's.
Yeah.
And he because they don't bother you. And he said, he would sit back there, and that's where he would write his material.
Yeah,
He'd be there almost all day.
Yeah, a lot of people go to Starbucks. I mean, it's just,
Wherever you
so
feel
many
comfortable writing.
is wherever you feel comfortable. Fortunately for me, I have my own office and
That's a beautiful
go
thing.
in and nobody bothers me, and I can sit and listen to music and rewrite jokes and, pace and talk them out loud, which, sometimes you just need to hear it.
What are your preferred methods now? Like, do you put it
I
in the
actually
phone?
have a notes in my phone, just a note.
I like
But
that.
I prefer.
Do you back it up?
No, I don't back it up because I prefer to write the jokes out with, longhand. And I even have some stuff that I'll type on my computer. I was watching a documentary with Joan Rivers, and she had everything on note cards. All of her bits were on these 5x7 cards. And I wish I had that level of discipline. But I can tell you, in my office right now, there's a crate, and there's probably this many I buy so many fucking notepads and start I love writing the joke
like
by
the
hand.
bigger
Yeah,
spiral.
You
there
know,
is
the yellow. I
something
like the
about
yellow
that
legal
connection,
pad.
right?
I like the yellow legal pad. And I can go look at old fucking bits from 10, 12 years
You
ago,
fill it up
15
that way,
years
then you
ago.
flip it around, or
I don't flip it around. That something a little weird about that to me. Shit on the back, and now I got to flip the notebook open and start reading this way. I'm not doing that. But I would have a system for whatever the bit was. I would write what the bit was about, and then I would write the bit out word for fucking word. No, and I mean,
I do that too. Yeah, even the
long
language I
ass-
would use. Yeah.
Oh my God, long ass fucking jokes. Every fucking word, fucking ellipses. How I used to like write body language, turns left, every fucking
Stage
thing.
direction
No
in your
stage
notes?
direction. I used
Wow.
to
That's
be
awesome.
that fucking detailed about writing out bits when I was first learning because I just didn't know any other way, and I wanted to make the shit work.
I like to do it and put it like I give it a subject. So if I'm even getting ready for a show and I'm trying to give myself some good notes to use, I want to search. I'll go for those subject headings. I'm like, all right, maybe I want to talk about this or whatever. But what's cool too about having that digital format, I like to write too, but I like to be able to search really quickly to get to what I'm looking
Sure.
for. So those keywords become super easy to use. But also what I would do too when I write, because I'll write it out as well, but I end up with a bunch of scrap papers. I never
Yeah,
buy a whole
Of
pad.
course.
I'll take a picture of it too.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust what's going to happen to this little slip of paper. It's usually like the back of a lot of envelopes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
if you're in a
back in the day,
hotel,
it was a lot of
That was,
napkins.
that was like always the most readable paper in the house. Is like, oh, some bills are right on this.
To me, it's like from listening to the process. There's a point in your life where you decide to be a comedian, and you know that you're funny,
sure,
and then you realize it's more than that.
it's a business.
And it's a business, but you also have preparation of content. And one of the things that, once you master the confidence on stage, which is primarily that's your first key is to be confident on that stage,
Yeah.
to do your material. The next thing is the content. And I'm always like, is it just, no matter where you are during the day, a comedian's mind is always finding the funny in just everyday nothingness that most people may, like Stephen Wright was brilliant.
Of course.
About,
Genius, yeah.
genius as far as, the world is small. They say it's a small
Larry
world, but I
David
wouldn't want to
too,
paint
just
it.
like,
Larry
yeah.
David, just right, because Seinfeld was
It's just
based on
most random little topic, turn it into a whole show.
right. So I mean, I'm always amazed that when comedians say they write, and my first was like, what do they mean they write? Like, what do they do? Are they looking for it? It's like, no, it's
like
always
inspiration.
revealing inspiration. The way somebody's walking, the conversation that they might have over listened to, an event that might have happened to them during this constant
Sure.
funny in every single aspect. It's almost like music, okay? And this is what I want to say about that. Think about the millions of choices of notes that bring together a song, even though they're the same notes used, it's just a different composition. And there's so many words and subjects. Like you could do a million mama jokes, you could do a million, family, relations, like all the topics are basically the same topics and the words, but the way it's all brought together, that endless, no matter how many comedians you see that may talk about similar subjects, it's always something that's so brilliantly done and something that you're like, oh my God, that's still a brilliantly funny thing based on a subject that has been covered, like I said, relationships.
Well, the difference is we got to talk about then what the difference is, right? And why is that? The difference is that the vantage point from where I sit in the world, in the universe, right, is going to impact the subject matter differently than you. You were raised in Boston. I was raised in Washington, D.C. I grew up with 11 brothers and 2 sisters. Wow. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a different experience from you. So the fact that I had to sleep in a bed with 1 or 2 other kids at one point in my life is going to shift my perspective about what it means to sleep in a bed or what bunk beds can, you know what I mean? So again, it's the same words, the same scenarios, but again, the fact that I grew up in Washington, D.C. and have witnessed some things that you may not have witnessed, the fact that I'm a black male in this universe and I'm very conscious of certain things, I have to have a voice that drives through certain material. And again, that's what shapes the words. And again, you can have a fucking paintbrush in your hand. We both can have the color blue, but the fact that I'm at this height and looking down and the impression of it's going to make my brushstroke look different from yours, even at the same fucking color.
But the one thing that's still with all those different experiences that ties is a commonality that happens that I can relate. That I find, even though I wasn't raised that there's something about those subjects, the way you present it, that touches,
but listen, I say you're either going to relate,
right,
or you're going to find it interesting. My job, like, okay, so I always use the size of my family is like one of the things that I can point to, because people either relate or they find it interesting, right? You either grew up in a family that's kind of big and you go, I relate to that. Or you go, that was fucking what? How many?
Right.
And it's interesting to you because it's completely different from your experience.
Yeah. And utilizing that is how you...
And it's how you shape, it's how you shape stories to share that hopefully people will, again, the end result will be some fucking laughter.
And is it a common question? I always like to ask, and I know that people ask you who you emulated as far
who
as...
I was inspired by?
Yeah.
Early on, my brother Ramlet, who's a year older than I am, just because he was so outrageously, he just did some of the dumbest shit that you ever want to see in your life. But then as a stand-up comic, so who was it first? It was Eddie Murphy first. Mm-hmm. Then after Eddie, it was Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. And then after Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor, it was Damon Wayans.
Okay.
Huge
Brilliant.
Damon Wayans fan. And then I went to go see Damon Wayans on his Mo Money tour, and Mark Curry opened for him. And Mark Curry was the one that made me decide that. Like, I'd already made the decision, but once I saw Mark Curry, I was like, okay, there's no turning back. This is absolutely, I have to do this.
I love that. I mean, it fascinates me as to how everybody talks about you hear the same names. When I ask the comedians who I always hear Eddie Murphy. I always
of course.
hear Richard Pryor.
She always wonders why no one mentions Flip Wilson.
I know.
Well, Flip Wilson is before, even though I'm aware of the show and everything, it just, again, for me, I was so young and watching him, it just didn't register, especially what he was doing, the style of comedy that he was doing, the way that performance, that it wasn't the traditional stand-up comedy that certain Eddie and Richard and Bill and those guys were doing. So it's a little different.
And my generation, like, I knew of Red Fox, but my parents had the idea of his albums.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know album
right,
Red Fox? Or
just and someone
TV
said this, like,
movie
there's Red Fox, and then there's, like, have you heard his album?
Yeah.
And saying
his
that
albums
whole,
are fucking filthy.
But the man was very well off because of it.
Yeah.
That was very true. So,
all right, so how can they reach me?
Just tell how you can reach
They
you.
can reach me on social media at Royale Watkins. Everything at Royale Watkins.
I will definitely be hitting you
Facebook,
up.
Twitter, Instagram, and I'm at Gotham Comedy Club in Manhattan every third Sunday hosting the Mixtape Comedy Show.
And then we can find out where you are out here.
I'm out here I just pop up. I don't even have a schedule out here, but again, they can follow it. If they follow me on social media, that's where the fun is, because I'm doing more stuff constantly on social media that people will probably get more enjoy. Well, I'm not gonna say more, but again, because it's so fluid and I do it
Well, I
all
know
the
you
time.
just want a fan. I have to check you
Oh,
out.
bless you. I appreciate
I love
that.
to support what everybody's doing. I hope for more of that. I'd like to get more of an audience, my East Coast people, to come out and hear these new comedians or the comedians that no one's heard of, even though they've been around, to have that exposure to different genres.
Yep.
And I appreciate you coming in after such a long
I appreciate
flight.
you all having me.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing your stuff. Rocky, as always, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Stay tuned next week. We got some people coming in next week. As I said, always a pleasure, and I'll see you out there.